I booked a cabin in the mountains. The previous guests left. I needed a break. Life had become a blur of stress, deadlines, and sleepless nights. So I booked a secluded cabin in the mountains. No Wi-Fi, no cell service, just silence. When I arrived, the place was perfect. A small wooden cabin, nestled deep in the woods, miles from anyone. The air was crisp, the trees swayed gently, and for the first time in months, I felt at peace. Inside, everything was just as described. Rustic, cozy. But something caught my eye. A single chair in the middle of the living room, facing the front door. Odd, but not alarming. Maybe the cleaners left it that way. I settled in, made some tea, and watched the sunset through the large window. That's when I noticed something strange. On the kitchen table, there was a note. A small, yellowed piece of paper, like it had been there for years. Don't sit down. I frowned. Was this some kind of joke? A prank from the owner? I tossed the note in the trash and ignored it. That night, as I lay in bed, I heard shuffling. I sat up, listening. It wasn't outside. It was inside the cabin. I turned on my flashlight and crept into the living room. The chair had moved. It was no longer in the center of the room. It was closer to my bedroom door. I swallowed hard. Maybe I had moved it earlier and forgotten. I pushed it back to the center of the room and went to bed, forcing myself to ignore the unease creeping up my spine. The next morning, I went to the kitchen for coffee. I nearly dropped the mug when I saw it. The same note on the table. Not crumpled. Not in the trash where I left it. And this time, there was more writing. Don't sit down. Don't let it sit down. I stared at the words, my pulse pounding. Who left this here? I searched the cabin from top to bottom. The doors were locked. The windows were closed. I was alone, but something in the air felt wrong. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the bed, watching the chair through the doorway. At 3 a.m., the air turned heavy. The room felt smaller. And then, the chair creaked. It was moving, on its own, not sliding, not tipping, rocking, back and forth, like something was sitting in it. My breath caught in my throat. The air turned freezing. My breath fogged in front of me. And then, the worst part, the chair stopped, and I heard a sound. Soft, slow breathing. Right next to me. I ran. I didn't stop to grab my bag. I didn't care about my stuff. I threw open the door and sprinted to my car. As I fumbled with my keys, I made the mistake of looking back. The chair was by the doorway now, and something was sitting in it. Not a person, not even a shadow, just a shape. Something dark and wrong, hunched in the chair, watching me. I sped away, tires kicking up gravel, and never looked back. Days later, I got a message from the cabin owner. You left in a hurry. Did you see it? I didn't reply. I didn't want to know. I just hope. I didn't bring it with me. Story 2. My online film student kept filming the same dead oak tree. I teach an online film class. Every semester, students submit short projects. Most are pretty basic. But last year, I had a student named Alex. He never spoke in class, never turned on his camera, but he submitted his work on time, and at first, everything seemed normal. Then I noticed something strange. His first submission was just a tree, an old, dead oak standing alone in an empty field. No movement, just silence. I thought maybe it was an artistic choice. But his next submission? Same tree, same angle, same time of day. Then the next one, and the next. Every assignment, just that tree. At first, I assumed he was reusing footage. But then I noticed something different. The branches weren't the same. One looked twisted in a way it hadn't before. And the shadows, they shifted unnaturally. Then, in one video, I saw it. A figure, far in the distance, barely visible, just standing at the tree line, watching. The next video, the figure was closer. My stomach knotted. I rewound, frame by frame. It never moved. It just appeared closer each time. By the 5th video, it was right behind the tree. I emailed Alex. No response. Then, one night, I got a file. Not from Alex. The email had no subject, no text. Just an attachment. I hesitated, then clicked. It was another video, but this time, the camera wasn't filming the tree. It was filming from behind the tree. A pair of hands were visible, gripping the bark, and breathing. Shallow, uneven breathing. Whoever was holding the camera was hiding, watching something. Then, slow footsteps. Coming closer. The breathing turned frantic. The camera shook. Then, the screen went black. And that was it. I reported Alex missing. Days later, I got one last email. No message. Just a single image. A new video still. Same tree. Same field. But this time, something was hanging from the branches. A figure, limp, swaying in the wind. I deleted the email. Blocked the sender. But sometimes in my dreams, I still see that tree. And I swear, something is still watching. Story 3, don't say their name. There's a legend. A name. A word you must never speak. No one knows where it came from. It's not in books, not in history. It only exists in whispers, passed down like a secret curse. If you say it out loud, something hears you. And then, it comes. I didn't believe it at first. It sounded like one of those internet hoaxes, a creepypasta to scare kids. But then my friend Matt tried it. We were at his place, hanging out, watching horror movies. He laughed, leaned in close and whispered, "What if I say it?" I rolled my eyes. "Dude, it's just a dumb story." But he was grinning, like it was a joke, like none of it mattered. And then, he said the name. It was just a sound, a word like any other. But the moment it left his lips, the room felt different. The air got thicker. The lights flickered for half a second. My stomach clenched, like the world had shifted just slightly off balance. Matt just laughed. "See? Nothing happened." I forced a chuckle, shook off the feeling. Then he yawned. "I'm gonna crash. Talk tomorrow?" I nodded, left his place. The next morning, Matt's mom found him in bed. Mouth open, eyes black, lips frozen in a silent scream. I didn't believe it. I refused to. It had to be something else, a freak accident, a medical condition. Then my other friend, Jason, said it. And the next morning, his parents found him the same way. One by one, everyone who spoke that name never woke up again. It didn't matter where they were, who they were with. They just go to sleep. And something took them. I started searching. Forums, old archives, hidden corners of the internet. Nothing. No history, no legend. Just warnings. If you hear the name, don't say it. Don't even think it. Because once you do, it knows you. And it waits. Last night, I woke up at 3:33 a.m. My phone was buzzing. An unknown number. The screen flickered, and for a split second, I saw something. A face, blurred, stretched into an impossible grin. Eyes too wide, teeth too sharp. And then, the call ended. I don't know how long I sat there, heart pounding. I don't know what happens if you see it and live. But I know one thing. The name is still out there. Someone will say it again. And when they do, it will come back. Story 4. Something in my body is trying to escape. It started with an itch. Deep under my skin. Right near my ribs. I scratched, but it didn't help. The itch wasn't on the surface. It was inside. Over the next few days, it got worse. The itch turned into a crawl. Like something moving beneath my skin. Doctors dismissed it. Stress, they said. Anxiety. But I felt it. Tiny movements, shifting beneath my ribs. Then, one night, I woke up to a whisper. Not in my ears. From inside my chest. Soft. Muffled. Like something trying to talk. I ran to the bathroom, lifted my shirt. My skin was pale, slick with sweat. And then, I saw them. Tiny, shifting lumps moving under my ribs. I screamed. Pressed my fingers against them. They moved away. I grabbed a knife. My hands shook, but I had to get it out. I pressed the blade into my skin. Blood welled up. But as soon as I made the first cut, pain, blinding, agonizing, and then, something pulled back. A sharp, tearing sensation inside me. Like whatever was under my skin was trying to stay. Then silence. I gasped, breathing hard, staring at the wound. The lumps were gone. The whispers stopped. I thought it was over. But this morning, I woke up with a new itch. On my neck. And this time, I swear I heard it laughing. Story 5. My sweet Delilah. I lost my wife, Delilah, a year ago. It still doesn't feel real. I wake up reaching for her, expecting to feel the warmth of her body next to mine. Instead, there's only cold sheets, the suffocating silence of an empty house. I tried to move on. People told me I had to. Time heals all wounds, they said. But they didn't understand. Delilah wasn't just my wife. She was my world. Without her, there was nothing. I visited her grave every night. Even when it rained. Even when it snowed. I sat by the headstone, whispered to her, told her how much I missed her, begged her to come back. And then, one night, she did. It was late. The air was thick with fog, the cemetery deathly silent. I had been there for hours, talking to her like always. Then, just as I stood to leave, I heard it. Soft. Faint. My name. My blood turned to ice. I spun around, heart hammering, breath caught in my throat. And there she was, standing at the edge of the trees. Pale. Beautiful. Just as I remembered her. Smiling. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Her lips parted. I found a way back. Tears burned down my face as I ran to her. My hands shook as I touched her face, her arms, her hair. She was warm. Real. Delilah? My voice cracked. Is it really you? She smiled, cupping my face in her soft hands. I missed you, she whispered. I don't understand, I choked. How? She pressed a finger to my lips. Does it matter? No. No, it didn't. I took her home. I didn't question it. Didn't ask how or why. All I knew was that she was back. That night, we lay in bed together. She fit against me perfectly, just like before. I listened to her breathe, felt her fingers trail lazily over my chest. I closed my eyes, let exhaustion pull me under. Then, just as I started to drift off, she whispered in my ear, I can't stay unless someone takes my place. My eyes shot open. My body went rigid. Her arms were still around me. Her breath was still warm against my skin. But something was wrong. Her voice. It wasn't hers. It was deeper, twisted, wrong. I tried to pull away, but her grip tightened. Her fingers dug into my skin, too strong. I swallowed hard. Delilah? She sighed against my neck. I love you, she murmured. But it wasn't a whisper of comfort. It was a warning. A cold, creeping terror slithered through my veins. Slowly, I turned my head. She was smiling, but not at me. At something behind me. I felt it before I saw it. A presence. Heavy. Looming. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Delilah's arms were still wrapped around me, holding me in place. And then, a second set of hands settled on my shoulders. Ice cold. Breath stirred the back of my neck. A voice, not hers, whispered in my ear. It's your turn. I screamed, thrashed, fought. But Delilah didn't let go. She held me as the hands dragged me back, into the shadows, into the cold. The last thing I saw was her face, smiling, tears rolling down her cheeks. And then, darkness. I woke up gasping. I was lying on something hard, damp. The air smelled of rot. I sat up too fast. My head spun. It was night. The air was freezing. I blinked. I was in the cemetery, by Delilah's grave. I scrambled to my feet, heart hammering. What just happened? Had it been a dream? A hallucination? Then, I saw it. The fresh dirt in front of her headstone, the overturned soil, and a new name carved into the stone. My name. A hand touched my shoulder. I turned, expecting to see her. But it wasn't Delilah. It was someone else. Someone I didn't know. Pale. Confused. Terrified. They opened their mouth to speak, but I already knew. I already knew what they were going to say, because I had said it myself.